Alright, so I got my stick, I have a saw blade. We're going to turn these two into a bucksaw, which we can use for bushcraft, processing firewood, whatever you want. And the best part is you can pack it down, put it in your bag when you're done, take it with you again. Alright, I'll show you how. So this stick is about 3 feet long. I have a 12-inch blade, and you want your stick to be about 3 times the size of your blade. You know, it's up to you really, but 3 times is a good place to start. Now, I don't have a measuring tape with me. I don't really bring one into the woods. I doubt most of you do, but we have lots of stuff we can measure with. The actual measurements don't matter as long as they're the same. So we've got fingers, we've got thumbs, we've got hands. You can use your knife as a measuring tool. I'm just going to use the saw blade itself. I'm going to make the uprights the same length as the saw blade, so I'm just going to notch it here. Now when I'm measuring, I like to make a decent notch in here. That way I can tell where it is. If I just make a line, it's going to be hard to see later. Make another one. Another 12 inches up from that. Start with the line. Instead of just leaving that line, I'm just going to make a little V-notch here, just to make it easy to see where that line was. If I put the stick down and then pick it up later, sometimes those lines are a little bit hard to see. So we need to cut here and here. Now, if you've brought another saw with you, you could use that. Or if you bring like a multi-tool or something, it has a little saw on it, you can cut this. But I'll show you how to cut this nicely with just your knife. So if I want to cut this nicely with just my knife, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ring all the way around with a V-notch. So just to mark as a guide where that's going to go, I'm just going to hold my knife down. I'm going to score a line just by rotating it. That way I know I'm going all the way around in the same spot, and it's going to be kind of flat. Now I just want to take a V-notch, so I'm going to carve in, and I'm just going to do this all the way around, just using my thumb for pressure here. You can see it's starting to come out. And then once I get all the way around, I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing from the other side. So you're going to have a nice V-notch that goes all the way around. Alright, so I've got both ends cleaned up. Now we're going to make a notch where our centerpiece is going to go. So we've got our 2 uprights, and then our centerpiece is going to fit something like this. So we just need to decide where it's going to be. That looks pretty good. And again, the actual measurements aren't important, but we want to make sure they're the same. So I'll mark it on one right here. So I'll mark it with my knife. Again, I'm going to make a little V just so I can see it easy. Mark where the other one needs to go. We want our notch to be the same width as the thickness of our centerpiece here. Now this notch, we're going to cut a square notch. So instead of a V in, we're going to go straight in on the sides. I'll show you how that's done. So I'm just going to put these down so I have something to go on. We're going to go in square with our knife just by rocking it, and in square with our knife just by rocking it. And we're going to carve out the inside. Start from the middle and work your way towards those little lines you made, and that's going to let your knife stop right where it needs to. Flip it around, and we're doing the same thing on this side, always carving from the middle towards our lines we made. And once we get to those lines, we're going to do it all over again. Square, just straight down, rock your knife back and forth, and same thing on this side. And then from the middle towards those lines, just use your thumb to control the pressure of your knife here. And see how these pop out? Once these stop popping out easy like that, then I know I've gone too far down. So we'll do the same thing on this side, just from the center. Use my thumb, go towards that line. Now we don't want this to go too far in to our uprights, no more than a third. Even a third is maybe a bit too far. Now we've got our notch. We're going to do the same thing on the other upright, but we want to make sure it's exactly the same. So use this one to measure off on this one. We'll line them up together, mark with my knife where it's got to go, and again on this side. I'm just going to take a little notch just so I can see it a little bit better if I drop it. There we go. Now we'll make a notch like this on this one. Alright, so we got both of our square notches cut. They're in the same spot on the length. Let's see how it fits. Alright, this is what we're going for right here. Now one thing you want to note when you're cutting these notches is you want to make sure that they're very flat. Here, this one's got a bit of a lump in it, and if there are any like lumps sticking out of here, it's going to make your upright wobble like this, and you don't want this wobble. It'll make your saw really loose. So we want to make this as flat as we can. I'm just going to clean this one up a little bit here. Got a bit of a lump right. Okay, so our uprights are all notched. Next step is to make a slit in the end here that our saw blade will fit into. So we got to find the center, and we're going to use our knife to split it. But before we split it, we're going to wrap it, because I don't want that split to end up going all the way down the saw and then breaking our piece of wood. So we're going to wrap it with some bankline, and that will make it a little reinforce this part of the stick, so that way our split will it'll end there and it won't keep going. So I'm going to come about I don't know, 3/4 of an inch, maybe a whole inch up. I'm just going to wrap this around. I think I'm going to go high enough that I can make sort of a grip out of it. We'll see how it works out. Make a loop with our bank line, and then starting at the top, start wrapping around down towards that little loop we made, a little farther down. All we're doing is wrapping it nice and tight. We're going to go around the string. We're going to keep on going. Just keeping everything nice and tight. The tighter we keep it, the cooler it's going to look. The better it's going to work. Alright, so we're done wrapping our bank line up the handle, about the same width as my hand. And again, this is unnecessary. You could probably just go about an inch up, and that would be strong enough. Next step, to finish this off, we're gonna, the little loop that we left at the end, we're gonna put our tag end through that loop. Maybe. There we go. Pull it tight. At the other end, little piece of string that left, we're going to use that. We're going to give it a pull. This is going to be tough. It's going to be hard to pull through, depending on how tight you wrapped it. We'll pull that through. That's going to pull our tag end through. Don't have to go all the way. There we go, and that pulled our tag end into the wrapping. Now we can just cut that off. Cut the tag end off at the other end. And these little leftover bits of bank line, make sure you take them out with you. Don't just leave them on the ground. Okay, next up, we're going to cut our notch in here. We're going to cut a notch in here that will fit our saw blade. Alright, our upright has been wrapped. Now we need to put a notch in the end where the saw blade is going to sit inside the upright. But before we do that, I want to sort of assemble it a little bit so I can line up where my saw blade needs to go. It needs to be basically in line with this upright here, or the center piece. So they need to be lined up together. I want my saw blade to go in the same direction as that center piece here. That looks about right. Then I can put my knife there. Remove that. Now you're going to need a baton or something, and you're just going to baton down. And that bankline we put on there is going to stop the wood from splitting all the way down. We take our knife out. We should be able to get our saw blade in this little groove we made here. Oops. And that sits in just like that. Perfect. We're going to make a notch here where our peg that goes through this hole is going to sit and stop the saw from going back in. Pegs are in place, one on each side. Now we just got to straighten the saw out so we can get an idea of its final shape. That looks pretty good. We can just use our upright here to make sure it's parallel. Should be the same. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So now we have our size, we can put one end of our upright in here and sort of get an idea of the size that we need to trim this to. So put this in as far as it'll go. Put that there, and then I can mark this upright with a knife right where I need to cut it to make it the right size. Right there. Again, I'll make a line and then I'll make a little bit of a notch just to make it easy to see, because I'm going to put it down and sometimes you lose where that line was. Okay, now we can trim this to size, same way we did the other ones. Just make the ring of V notches and then we can break it and clean it up. Okay, now the last thing we need to do is make a windlass for the top to pull the two uprights together and really tighten the saw blade down. And for that, all I'm going to use is a piece of black paracord and then a little piece of wood I carved from the cut-off piece of the center bar. Tie this around. I'm just going to do just a little double overhand knot here. Just twist this here. So I need my notches. Try to make it even. So I'll cut my notch here and another one here. So I'm just going to slide this down. And I can cut the notches on it while it's put together. That way I can tell the notches are going in the right direction. So I need one here. This will just stop the paracord from sliding. Once it's tight, the paracord isn't going to slide around. But when you're first putting it together, the paracord has a tendency to slide around a bit. And that will just stop it. And then another notch right there. Again, the measurements aren't important, just try to make them the same. There we go. And then our frame saw, or bucksaw, or bow saw, or whatever you want to call it, it's basically done. There we go. It's complete. Let's go see if we can cut some wood with it, shall we? I mean, it's not the biggest saw. Perfect. Bushcraft bucksaw. All you need is a knife and a saw blade, a little bit of bankline or paracord, and you're good. Cool little afternoon project. This can break down, I can put it in my bag, I can use this for years. Hope you enjoyed watching. My goal for the year was 1,000 subscribers. Not sure I'm going to make that, but if you want to subscribe, please do. If not, that's okay too. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.